Oh, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when it finds you. Just want to talk a little bit today about some of the stuff that's going on and, some of the things we've been taught as believers by guys who went to seminary, and for a lot of our Christian denominations, past, present, and influence that they've had on us as believers and all of their faulty teaching that's basically coming from the Cyrus Scofield Bible because we don't understand practically almost 100% of Christians don't understand where their pastor's influence has come from. And I'm going to talk about some things, a little bit. This morning, my phone went off about 5:15 a.m. And I'm wondering, who's texting me this time of morning. It was one of my cousins, and he and I don't talk often, but he was texting me. I normally don't get up to check my phone if I hear it go off that time of morning, but something in my spirit said, get up and check it out, which I did. And he wanted to talk about some of the things going on in the Middle East, and he's very well studied as well. And he and I communicated for a good while about that. And I might kind of be all over the place in this video, but by the end, it's going to all make sense to you. If it doesn't, listen to it again. If it doesn't, listen to it again. If it doesn't, go do some research. But I'm just tired of the lies. How about you? Well, I've been tired of the lies. But, I want to read you something before I get started. Edom figures prophetically in future judgment. And that's according to Isaiah 34, 5 and 6, and Isaiah 63 and 1. She's the only neighbor of the Israelites who was not given any promise of mercy from God. Why did I read you that? Because the people currently in Israel are Edomites, not Israelites. That's why your pastors love to say the Jewish people, because they biblically cannot say they are Israelites because they're not. Even Benjamin Freeman, in the book that wrote the book Facts Are Facts, said you cannot call a Jewish person an Israelite. Jewish encyclopedias and Jewish books say you cannot call a Jewish person an Israelite. So your government's lying to you, your pastor's lying to you. So is God lying, or is your pastor in the U.S. government lying? I mean, tell me. You say you don't trust the U.S. government, but when it comes to Israel, you trust the U.S. government. Something ain't adding up. See, Edomites are descendants of Esau. Esau's descendants are our cousins. Hey, but it says in Malachi, in the book of Baruch, that God hates Esau and he loves Jacob. So let me get this straight. God said he hates Esau, and your pastors are lying to you saying that God wants us to bless them. Some of the pastors try to do an end around and say Abraham's descendants. Well, if that's the case, Ishmaelites, which are your Arabs, are also supposed to be blessed as well, right? The Bible is very clear. It's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Your pastors are teaching you Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. See, I love for somebody to tell me which one of the 12 tribes of Jacob the people currently in Israel descend from. Is it the tribe of Judah? Is it the tribe of Benjamin? Is it the tribe of Zebulun? What about Dan? Or is it Naphtali? Uh, Levi, Reuben, Simeon, Asher, Manasseh, Manasseh. Um, who else do I have? Ephraim or Gad? Which one of the 12 do they belong to? Just tell me, and I will then go with your version of Bible prophecy that's being shouted from pulpits all over the country since 1948. See, I'm waiting for some Bible scholar to tell me because I haven't found it yet. Somebody, anybody. Nobody? See, don't waste your time because you ain't going to ever find it. Now, if you can't find it, that means somebody somewhere is lying. So is the Bible lying or is your pastor a liar? There's a reason many of today's pastors only want to teach the New Testament. See, the Old Testament commands us on what we should still be doing right today, with the exception of polygamy, animal sacrificing, and tithing. See, the New Testament don't even support tithing. But your pastors try to say giving and tithing are the same thing. It ain't the same thing. Tithing has always been produce and the 10th animal of increase. Produce increase, animal increase. Tithing ain't never been money, but I'm not here to talk about that. I see the part of the New Testament that they should be teaching instead of the lies is John chapter 8, specifically verse 44. When was the last time you ever heard your pastor even reference John chapter 8? He won't, because it exposes a certain group of people. And if it exposes a certain group of people, then his entire ministry has to change from what he has been teaching about God's chosen people. Because if pastors started teaching about who the fake people are, then the people are going to start to ask, well, who are the real people? I mean, there are multiple verses in the Old Testament which state what happens in the land when the real people return to their land. See, right now, deportation is the big issue. And they talking about black people, if black Americans don't stand with all the people being deported, black people gonna be the next one deported. Let me tell you something. If you see a mass exodus of black people out of this country, the second exodus biblically is taking place. It ain't because of no deportation. Y'all better wake up. The second exodus done took place if you see a mass movement of black Americans up out of here. So the people gonna ask who the real people. The Bible says when the true people return to the land, there's going to be peace. It says animals will be able to live with each other. I think it says the bear and the cow will be able to live. The lion and the sheep, or the lion and the goat, or something like that, they live together. I can't think of that off the top of my head. But I'm going to give you some scripture a little bit later. And but it says from time to time, a lot of things are going to happen when the real people return to their land, when God gives the real people the land back. But from time to time, my wife and I will watch church service online of the church we last attended. We haven't been there since 2017, but we'll still watch messages from time to time. But it's getting harder and harder for me to watch it because I study my Bible, and it was a health challenge that stopped us from going to the church anyway. And that's one of the things I was telling my cousin. I was commenting on a post the other day about the issue going on over there, and here come all the so-called Christian attack dogs, and they thought I must have been a poodle, and they go on and on and on, and one dude told me I need to study, and I responded to him. I said, "Bruh, I would love to meet you face to face and have a debate." I say, because if that ever happens, we're gonna find out who the dummy is. And I ain't got time to be nice and playing with these people no more, because they think they know everything, because they ain't studied nothing. They just listening to their lying pastors and their lying Republican politicians. They can't think for themselves. But I was telling my cousin, I said, dude gonna tell me I need to study history. Bruh, I've been studying history since I was in middle school. I ain't stopped. And I told my cousin, what, with everything that's happened with my health, I said, that's all I've been doing is studying more. And so I'm not going to argue with people who I know ain't studied. And it's obvious when they talk, they ain't studied jack. One dude going to ask me, well, if Israel is the bully, why haven't they used their bomb? Well, I said, because Netanyahu's been saying since 1988 that Iran is building a nuke. I said, and Iran still don't have a nuke. But Israel won't even let the inspectors in there to check their stuff in the United States, and the UN let them get away with that. But Iran is the threat. And get out of here. But we were listening to the church service. And the message for the day was supposed to be on marriage. Every Friday they'll send an email out. And I've been subscribed to the email list for years. and to talk about what the message is gonna be for that Sunday, the not Sabbath Sunday. And it's supposed to be on marriage, so I wanted to watch that one. And the pastor gets on the concert stage and he starts the message all talking about how Iran is bad and how God is going to protect and bless his Jewish people from all threats in the Middle East. And that's why Iran needs to be dealt with. And, we need to pray for the Jewish people and all that. And I'm like, I told my wife, I say, we done. We done with this message for today. I mean, we left it playing, but neither one of us heard anything else he said because I talk to my wife about everything that's going on. I think sometimes I talk to her too much. I ain't got nobody else to talk to. But my wife understands when things going on. Sometimes, she'll start watching it on a Sunday when I haven't totally got out the bed yet. And when I walk in there, she say, "You probably need to go get back in the bed." But he just went on and on and on. I'm like, this dude here. I said, and the people in the congregation, and I went ahead and commented because it's online on YouTube. I went ahead in the chat session and say he better stop lying to these people and start telling these people the truth. But I knew wasn't nobody going to engage me, because he got a pastor that runs the chat session too. But they about as ignorant as each other. But it was supposed to be on marriage, but we didn't hear nothing no more after that. See, God said his people were scattered all around the world and he would gather them back again. He didn't say his people had been kicked out of 109 countries already and nobody wanted them back. He said his people were scattered. He said when he would gather them back again, he said his people would be righteous. He said when his people returned home, they would live in peace. These pastors are in the United States are literally standing with homosexuality, incest, and genocide. And you say, they ain't talking about incest. What you think those men do to those newborn baby boys when they're born? Check that out. I can't pronounce what it's called, but check that out. See, the Bible said, as in the days of Noah in Matthew 24. See, you're going to have to read this chapter to fully understand the things that happened during the days of Noah. False teachers were in the days of Noah. Nations and kingdoms fighting each other and against each other were in the days of Noah. Famines and pestilences were in the days of Noah. Wars and rumors of wars were in the days of Noah. Bestiality was in the days of Noah. Homosexuality was in the days of Noah. See, your pastor ain't never properly explained the days of Noah. He just touched on it. See, sexual perversion was rampant in the days of Noah. God has never destroyed no nation for adultery or fornication. I never said they were right, but God has never destroyed a nation for adultery and fornication. He has destroyed nations for homosexuality and bestiality, though. Like Geno Jennings said one time, he said, you got pastors sleeping with men now. He said, now don't get me wrong. He said, pastors have always been having affairs with women. He said, but at least they were doing the wrong thing the right way. He said, these dudes now are doing the wrong thing the wrong way. And so in the days of Noah, Matthew says the sun was darkened. What are these wicked devils talking about right now doing to the sun? Matthew says the days of Noah, the stars are going to fall from heaven. When was the last time you looked at the sky in any city and saw any stars? See, this is also the chapter where the false rapture teaching came from. See, the part most every pastor and Christians miss is that the first people to be taken are the evil ones, not the believers. See, when I started to believe in the rapture, see, that stuff wasn't even taught to me growing up. No pastor had ever taught me the rapture growing up. I knew nothing of the rapture growing up. I didn't hear about the rapture until I was back in January 1999, I was in um, Houma, Louisiana, working. There were several of us over there working from different parts of the country. And one of the ladies that worked with me gave me a book by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins called Left Behind. And I got so caught up. She lived down in Converse, Texas. And she said, Jones, she said, just take the book with you. She said, the next time we're working together, she said, just bring it back. No, okay, that was cool. I love to read, so I knew I would be finished with it because we were going to see each other the next week in a different city. And so I started reading that book by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins, Left Behind. And it was a whole series created uh, after that. And for years, even before that, I had been a big fan of Tim LaHaye. And so I knew Tim LaHaye wouldn't lie. Well, guess what? LaHaye lied. But during that period, after reading the first book, I couldn't wait for each new book installment to come out. I bought every last book, and when I came into awareness after study, I threw every last one of them in the trash. I didn't throw hers in the trash. I gave her hers back. And I think, what was it, like 14, 15, 16 books in that? Roughly $15, $20 a piece. I threw every last one of them in the trash on the same day once I got the truth. But let me get back to some scripture, though, because according to every version of the Bible I've read, when true Israel returns home, there's going to be peace in the world. Isaiah 32:18. Then my people will dwell in a peaceful place in safe and secure places of rest. Is it safe and secure in the Middle East right now? We know the answer to that. Ezekiel 34:25. I will make with them a covenant of peace and rid the land of wild animals so that they may dwell securely in the wilderness and sleep in the forest. Is it peaceful over there? Psalm 29:11. The Lord gives his people strength. The Lord blesses his people with peace. If God was blessing his people that are supposed to be in Israel with peace, why are they begging their big brother America to come and fight every fight that they start? They ain't nothing but big old bullies, cowardly bullies. They throw the first punch, put their hand behind the back, and then they call a little lapdog America to go finish the fight they started, and then they blame the people they attacked. Jeremiah 30:10. As for you, O Jacob, my servant, do not be afraid, declares the Lord, and do not be dismayed, O Israel. For I will surely save you out of a distant place, your descendants from the land of their captivity. When have they ever been held captive? Jacob will return to quiet and ease with no one to make him afraid. No one will make him afraid. So why is Netanyahu calling on Trump? Because he's afraid. See, Israel ain't gonna call on nobody. If you go back and read Jasher, Genesis, Maccabees, whenever Israel came against their enemies, they didn't call on other countries. They called on God. And God was sending. They never called on no man to come to their defense. Not one time. Zechariah 14:11. People will live there, and never again will there be an utter destruction. So Jerusalem will dwell securely. Isaiah 11:6-9. The wolf will live with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the goat. The calf and young lion and fatling will be together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will graze with the bear, their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play by the cobra's den, and the toddler will reach into the viper's nest, but they keep talking about a red heifer. The Bible ain't saying nothing about no red heifer. Not in the context they talking about. Micah 4:3-4. Then he will judge between many peoples and arbitrate for strong nations far and wide. Then they will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will no longer take up the sword against nation, nor will they train any more for war, and each man will sit under his own vine and under his own fig tree with no one to frighten him. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken. See, Israel threw the first punch at Iran. And then they started crying because Iran retaliated. And then Iran, what they call it, um, what was they call it back then in World War II? The Blitzkrieg. Iran returned the Blitzkrieg on them. But they started, and Trump told Israel, don't do that. But they did it anyway. They did it. Iran responded. And Trump, what you gonna do to help us? Now Trump want to tell Iran, y'all better stop. We gonna patrol y'all skies above Iran. Look here, Russia has more nukes than us. Okay, Iran still don't have a nuke. But what the Bible says, nation is gonna come against nation. The nations that's gonna come against nations are the white dominated nations because they can't stand for each other to be in charge. Amos 9:14 and 15. And I will bring again the captivity of my people of Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof. They shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them. That says my people Israel are going to build the waste cities. They're going to rebuild the waste cities. They want to show you the part of Israel they want you to see. Them people done destroyed that country. That's why they're trying to get up out of there back to Ukraine. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land which I have given them, said the Lord thy God. Now, if God has replanted his people back in their land, why are these people right now out of Israel fleeing into Cyprus, Greece, Romania, and in Ukraine right now? These same Israelis over there are keeping every non-Israeli person out of their secure bunkers. If you're not a Jew, you can't enter the bunkers over there. God's word said, once the people get back in their land, they will never have to leave the land again. See, what does the Bible say about the area before Jacob's descendants return? I'm glad you asked. See, in Luke 21:24, it reads, some of the people will be killed by soldiers. Others will be made prisoners and taken to different countries. The holy city of Jerusalem, the holy city of Jerusalem, the holy city of Jerusalem will be under control of foreigners until their time is completed. Their time ain't completed yet, but it's coming to that time. That's what your pastors and them and the government are trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid judgment. I'll say it again. Somebody lying to you, and it ain't the Bible. Somebody explain Ezekiel 34:16 to me, please, because it hasn't happened yet. It says, I'll search for the lost sheep. I will bring back the sheep that were scattered and put bandages on the sheep that were hurt. I will make the weak sheep strong, but I will destroy the fat and powerful shepherds. I will feed them the punishment they deserve. Ezekiel 34:29 states, I will give them some land that will make a good garden. Then they will not suffer from hunger in that land or suffer the insults from the nations anymore. Y'all remember we never got our 40 acres and a mule, and then when they finally did give our ancestors some land, it was land that was hard to farm. It was non-arable ground. God is saying He gonna give us land that's gonna make a good garden. See, it was hard to garden on that non-arable soil. Ezekiel 37:21 says, I will gather the people of Israel from among the nations. I will gather them from all around and bring them back to their own land. Verse 24 says, and my servant David will be the king over them. There will only be one shepherd over all of them. They will live by my rules and obey my laws. They will do the things I tell them. Now, after hearing those scriptures right there, how can you say that's happened already? Because Yahuwah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, right? By the way, my servant David does not mean King David who, you know, had the affair with Bathsheba and killed her husband. It means the descendant of David, which is Yahusha, the man you call Jesus. See, sexual perversion was also rampant in the days of Noah. Not only people were people having same-sex relationships, but they were having sex with animals. Y'all think Yahuwah is gonna bless? Y'all think Yahuwah, God, is gonna bless the homosexual capital of the world in Tel Aviv? Let me ask you something. As a father, would you bless your children for that lifestyle? I'm not saying you never stop loving your children, but you're not gonna bless your child for that unless you like that. Why do you think Yahuwah is different? Has there been any peace in the Middle East since 1948? Nope. And every time you look around, Israel is always the victim. Everybody always picking on Israel. The people in Israel have been kicked out of over 100 countries. Some of those countries several times. They were kicked out. They weren't kicked out because they were victims. It's like your child going to school. And in a high school period, 4-year period, they've been kicked out of so many schools, and the parent always think it's a school problem. No, the problem is you and your child. Your child are always the victim. Israel are always the victim. They were kicked out because they were the victimizers. Israel slapped somebody, hides their hand, and then calls, like I said, the lapdog America to finish the fight they started. October 1956, Israel invaded Egypt, the Sinai Peninsula over in Egypt. June 1967, Six-Day War, Arab and Israeli forces. 1973, they had the Yom Kippur War. June 1982, tension between Israel and Palestine. And Israel is bombed Beirut in southern Lebanon. 2006, they had the second Lebanon War. 2023, they had the Israel-Hamas conflict. And what you need to know, yeah, see, y'all missed a whole lot of stuff around 9/11. Y'all still think Arabs did it. In 2001, the goal was to take out 7 countries in 5 years. Y'all didn't even listen to the United States general that said what the goal was. Amazingly, all 7 countries are Israel's enemies. Lebanon, check. Syria, check. Iraq, check. Somalia, check. Libya, check. Sudan, check. Iran, to be continued. Israel is the one always pushing the buttons, and many Christians are too stupid to even study for themselves. I learned years ago that the pastor of most of these Christian churches has been the biggest detriment to the Bible. And we're so stupid that we send our sons and daughters to die for other countries in the name of freedom, keeping America free. See, I heard one politician say years ago, if we hadn't entered World War II, we'd all be speaking German. Dude, shut up. Y'all about stupid when they. I mean, I, I just can't. I just can't. Uh, Stop sending your children to die for other people. Let you sitting there crying while these bankers and these corporations getting filthy rich off your children's death, and they going to fight and shed blood for somebody else. How many Israeli soldiers died in the Iraqi-U.S. conflict? 0. But guess who was feeding all the intelligence to the United States? Israel. But none of their troops went into that conflict. None of their troops died in that conflict. The only people that died in that conflict was American soldiers and Iraqi citizens and Saddam Hussein. Ted Cruz, he ain't gonna never be able to recover after that interview he did with Tucker Carlson the other day. He said Americans are supposed to be slaves to Israel. Well, Teddy, you're absolutely correct. You're just a slave to the wrong Israel. But what Ted Cruz just said on Tucker Carlson, I think this was like 2, 3 days ago, shows you that almost 100% of your United States politicians are compromised, including Donald Trump. I think Thomas Massey is probably the only politician in the D.C. area who doesn't receive any money from Israel. That says a whole lot. And you think you donating $100,000, $500,000 to these politicians They working on your behalf? No, they thanking you for giving them some money. But when you got uh lobbying organizations throwing multiple millions in their pockets, your $1,000, $500 look like a penny. So, white conservative Christians are the biggest supporters of deportation, while at the same time supporting illegal immigrants living in Israel, thanks to the Balfour Declaration. I mean, they say from pulpits that they have a right to the land over there, but they want to kick out the foreigner here. Well, the original foreigner here is them. See, Christians, the Bible does not support you kicking people out of a country. Nowhere. Have you seen the list from the Trump administration for the countries he's planning to ban from the U.S.? Every country he wants to ban, it's about 25 to 30 of them. It's all countries with dark-skinned people. Guess what all of the immigrants being deported have in common? All of them are dark-skinned. I've seen videos of white people who are openly saying they are here illegally. I think the last one I saw was a young lady from Sweden. And she said they have actually been told they don't have to leave. Is this what the Trump supporters voted for? Exodus 23:9. You shall not oppress a sojourner. You know the heart of a sojourner, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. Sojourner is temporary visitation or temporary resident. Deuteronomy 10:19. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Deuteronomy, no, I just read that one. Leviticus 19:33 and 34. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Psalm 146:9. The Lord watches over the strangers. He upholds the orphan and the widow, but the way of the wicked he brings to ruin. Zechariah 7:9 through 10. Render true judgment. Show kindness and mercy to one another. Do not oppress the widow, the orphan, the alien, or the poor, and do not devise evil in your hearts against one another. See, that's why a lot of your pastors don't like the Old Testament. But see, it's scriptures in the New Testament too on how we're supposed to treat foreigners. See, that's why the pastors say the Old Testament was written to Hebrews, because the Hebrews were given specific instructions on how to welcome, invite, and treat people that came into their nations, their countryside. Christians say, get the hell out of the country that we stole through colonization and evangelization and missionary trips. That's why your pastors don't want to teach that Old Testament, because if they start getting in the Old Testament and what the Old Testament teaching, they know all of their theology is wrong. See, but the problem with y'all whites is y'all don't call what y'all do when y'all go into a country illegal. Y'all call it colonization. I'll talk to you later.